In this video, I'm going to answer some of the questions you've had on YouTube. Yes, I've had quite a few questions and I apologize. I've got busy, had some things to do, take care of some things, so I've been a little bit behind on answering some of your questions, but I'm going to take care of a few of those today. So let me go ahead and go to the questions here and we will get started. Matt asks, "Hello Donnie, I really need your help on this question. Would it be okay to prepare a new E-coated automotive panel this way?" And he's talking about a video where we're sanding a panel. And generally, if it's a new panel that has E-coat, you can just sand it like we did in the video and you'll be fine. So what we did this video, I'm going to tell you here in a little bit when that might not work. So if you got a brand new fender and it's E-coated, the first thing you always want to do, no matter what, really no matter if it's new, used, or whatever, you want to wash it with soap and water, and that gets rid of some of the contaminants. And you want to make sure to get rid of the additional contaminants by wiping it with a wax and grease remover. And that's actually going to save you time and money, because if there's any coatings, any waxes, any contaminants on there, whenever you're trying to final sand it, it's coating up your sandpaper and clogging it, and it's not going to last near as long. So get rid of all that by washing it with soap and water, and then you're going to use wax and grease remover to completely clean it. And then if it's a new E-coat, you can sand it with 500 grits, what we use, but anywhere between 400 and 600 is what's recommended, anywhere within that range. We always use 500 on a DA pad, or on a DA with the interface pad. And we'll go over it all. And all we're doing, we're not trying to take the metal. We don't want to. That E-coat's good. It provides corrosion protection. But you do want to scuff it up. However, like on your body lines, some of your edges, things like that, you are going to sand through and get some metal pieces, and that's fine. You can come back and work with that later. But yeah, you want to sand all that, and once you're done, you want to wash it with soap and water again, and then inspect it real good. Make sure there's no spots that wasn't sanded. If there are, you want to come back and sand it. And another thing before you wash, I just forgot to mention, is use a red maroon scuff pad to go around it all again, just to assure you got everything scuffed, and also get your edges, your jams, and anything that's going to be painted that you didn't get with the DA. That scuff pad will get in those hard to get areas a lot easier, and get places that the DA wouldn't get, and that way you know that everything is sanded and prepped and ready to be painted. So anyway, after you get it all sanded and scuffed, wash it again with soap and water. And then normally what I'll do is I'll pull it in the booth, or if it's just a fender, I'll put it in the booth and mask it off. And you want to back mask around your edges, or whatever you're doing. If it's a whole car, you want you want to mask properly. And after you do that, you've got fingerprints on the car where you've been masking and doing this. You want to come back again and use wax and grease remover once again to make sure all fingerprints, oils, any contaminants is removed. And then once that's done, you're gonna, like the bare metal spots you may have sanded through and got some bare metal, you're gonna come back with some self-etch primer, just for those little spots, or epoxy, either one is fine, to coat those for corrosion protection. And you don't need to sand that, you just put it on, let it flash, and then you can put your primer sealer, and then your base coat, and then your clear coat. No sanding between those steps. So Matt, I hope that helps answer your question. That was a good question, but now I'm going to answer one thing where that might not work. Not all aftermarket parts are created equally. They may be black and all look like E-coat, but they, depending on where that is made, that coating could be nothing but lacquer, lacquer primer. If that's the case, you will need to strip it down to bare metal and put like epoxy on it and continue from there. Now the way you're going to tell is you're going to do a chemical test. You get some lacquer thinner or reducer, some solvent on a rag. You wipe it down, or you just wipe a spot on the panel. If the black transfers to the rag, that means it's not high quality E-coat. If it doesn't, you're fine to do just the method we talked about. But if it does transfer to the rag, you better strip it down, sand it down, and start over, or it'll cause you problems later. because lacquer primer, it does not provide corrosion protection like epoxy, self-etch primer, or e-coat. E-coat being the best, that's superior. So I hope that answers your question. If not, let me know, and I apologize for taking me so long to get to you to answer that question. Okay, let's go to another one. Okay, K&W says chassis frame is push in on the driver's side where it is by my upper control arm at what is called supposed to be A frame. If not mistaken, my question really, can a bent or damaged frame eat your tires? Cause few say it doesn't. Everyone else I go to say it would. I need an answer from a teacher. And the answer to that, yeah, anytime anything's bent in your suspension, a control arm or your frame or anywhere in there, it's probably going to cause a misalignment. And many of your misalignments is going to cause tire problems. It's going to eat your tires. It's going to cause a, it may, depending on what alignment it is, it may wear on the inside and not the outside, or maybe the outside, not the inside. It's toe in or toe out. It's going to eat, cause tire problems. So more than likely, it is going to cause it to eat up your tires a lot faster than normal. So I would say the answer to that is yes. If it's hard to say without knowing exactly what's going on there, but yeah, I would say that could cause tire wear, excessively tire wear. Okay, let's go on. Okay, here's another from Jeremy. Just Jeremy. Hello, I have a question. My car has been painted with spray paint. It doesn't look too bad. There's just there's just one spot and some stress cracks that show through. I'd like to fix. Could I sand that area with 180, just scuff it up and mix some glaze putty and spread it over the stress cracks, and then sand it again, then respray the paint area? Will glaze putty work on stress cracks is my main question. I guess as you can apply it over sanded paint, that it's been sanded with at least 180 grit, correct? And is 2-part glaze putty better? And is there a brand you recommend, or would a high build primer work? Can you use primer over sanded paint? I'm new at all this. Thanks so much for all your help, and I love these videos. So anyway, what Jeremy's asking, they've painted it with some spray can paint, and there's some stress cracks in there, where either wrinkled or whatever the cause is. And my answer to that always is, you really need to sand those out. And I'd be careful putting glazes and stuff over that 1K. It's single component product, like out of a spray can, because it might react on you, might wrinkle. You might have some problems. This it wouldn't take too long just to sand a little bit more and sand those completely out of there. You may go down past the spray can paint, but I would sand them completely out, and then you could put some primer surfacer on there. Sand it with 180, it'd be fine, and spray it with some primer surfacer. Sand that with final sand it with some 500, and then you could come back and put your paint back on top of that. As far as applying glaze putty, you are correct. They usually recommend 180 grit. That's about the finest they want to go whenever you apply glaze putty to the surface. And to answer your other question, yeah, they used to have a 1K putty, like a lacquer type putty that they use. They don't really use that anymore. They have it, you can get it, but that's really used, well, it may be used for this. It's for back when they had the lacquer primers, everything was 1K, one component products. So these days everything's 2 component, and I would use a 2 component glaze putty. They are a lot better, they dry a lot faster, and they sand easier, in my opinion. So, but anyway, I hope that helps answer your question. I would definitely just try to sand those stress scratches out, get rid of them, and then work from there. Anyway, thanks for asking, and if that doesn't answer your question, let me know. Okay, here's another question from Jay Lawson. Hi Donnie, love the videos. I ran into an issue. I tried to remove a sag, I guess before the paint fully hardened. Now I have an area that the paint has rolled off, and that's quite big. How do I repair that? Wait for the paint to cure, sand out the area, add filler, scuff the whole area, panel, and reshoot. Your help is appreciated. It's a single stage paint. Yeah, on single stage I would probably just repaint the whole panel because it's kind of hard to blend single stage like you would a base clear. So I would, for that spot, I would let it fully cure, because that can cause problems whenever you go to painting over fresh paint. You know, it could wrinkle, react, and then you could have some problems that way. So I would let it cure out, and then I could probably, you could probably block that out real good, just with a block, and get rid of all that. I don't think you'd necessarily have to put body filler unless, you know, it causes a big lump there or something. But I probably would come back and put some primer on there just to after you block it out, and then block your primer, and then final sand the whole panel, and get it ready for paint. So, you know, after it's final sanded again, you know, you could respray that panel, whichever, you know, a door, fender, whatever it is. But I'd probably go ahead and try to spray that whole panel again. But I don't think you necessarily have to use a filler on that, you know, but you probably primer, surfacer, you know, something like that. Anyway, I don't want to make these videos too long, and I hope that helps answer some of your questions. If not, leave a comment below and I will try to get back to them. I'm going to try to start doing these more again. Like I said, into school year, you know, I'm a teacher, got busy trying to take care of some loose ends there. But anyway, thanks for watching, take care, and we'll see you in the next video.